My name is Harold Mitchum, and I'm 76 years old. I've lived through Vietnam, Watergate, 9 presidents, and the birth of the internet. I've seen the world change in ways I never thought possible when I was a young man. But none of those changes, none of those historical moments, compare to what happened in my living room 3 weeks ago. For 50 years, I carried a secret. 50 years of holidays, birthdays, graduations, weddings. 50 years of smiling for family photos, while a piece of glass sat lodged in my chest, working its way deeper with every breath. 50 years of watching my children love their mother, defend their mother, celebrate their mother, while I knew something they didn't. She cheated on me in 1975. I caught her. I never told anyone. Until 3 weeks ago, when my eldest son found a box in our attic that I thought I'd burned 40 years ago. A box containing letters, photographs, and a hotel receipt dated March 14, 1975. Evidence of an affair that ended our marriage in every way that mattered, except legally. My 3 children, Michael, 51, Jennifer, 49, and David, 46, sat in my living room and asked me questions I'd spent half a century avoiding. Their mother, my wife of 53 years, sat in her chair by the window, silent for the first time in decades. And I told them everything. This is that story, not the sanitized version, not the version that protects anyone's feelings or preserves anyone's dignity. The real story, the one that's been rotting inside me since 1975, when I was 26 years old and believed my wife when she said she was visiting her sick aunt in Pittsburgh. She wasn't in Pittsburgh. She was at the Sheraton in downtown Cleveland with a man named Douglas Hartley, and I have photographs to prove it. I need to take you back, all the way back to 1975, to a version of me you wouldn't recognize if you saw him today. 26 years old, 2 kids under 5, working 60 hours a week at the Ford plant in Brook Park. Dark hair, strong back, hands that could still grip a wrench for 10 hours straight without cramping. I was young, and I was tired, and I was in love with my wife, Catherine. That was her name then. Still is, technically, though I've called her Kathy for so long, I sometimes forget she used to insist on the full name. Catherine Marie Brennan, before she became Catherine Mitchum. 24 years old in 1975, blonde hair to her shoulders, the kind of pretty that made other men look twice and made me feel like I'd won something just by getting her to marry me. We'd been married 4 years. Michael was 3, Jennifer 18 months. We lived in a small house in Lakewood, Ohio, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a postage stamp yard where I'd planted tomatoes that never came up right. It was cramped and loud and chaotic in the way that young families are, but I thought we were happy. I really did. March of 1975 was cold. Not snow cold, but that raw, damp Ohio cold that gets into your bones and stays there. I was working the day shift at the plant, 7 to 3:30, then coming home to help with the kids while Kathy made dinner. Routine, comfortable, safe. On Thursday, March 13th, Kathy told me her Aunt Dorothy in Pittsburgh had taken ill. A stroke, she said. Her mother was going to drive out Friday morning, and Kathy wanted to go with her, stay through the weekend to help out. "Who's going to watch the kids?" I asked, practical as always. "Your mother said she could take them," Kathy said, not meeting my eyes. She was folding laundry at the kitchen table, her hands moving mechanically through the pile of small shirts and tiny pants. "I already asked her. She's happy to do it." Something felt off. I couldn't name it then, couldn't put my finger on what exactly was wrong with the picture, but something in my gut twisted. Maybe it was the way she wouldn't look at me. Maybe it was the fact that she'd already arranged childcare before asking if I minded her going. Maybe it was just instinct. "How long will you be gone?" I asked. "Just the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I'll be back Monday morning." I nodded, said okay. Kissed her goodbye on Friday morning and watched her load a small suitcase into her mother's Buick. Watched them drive away, went to work, came home, picked up the kids from my mother's house. That Friday night, I sat in our living room with Michael asleep on my lap and Jennifer in her crib. and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Not just wrong, bad wrong, the kind of wrong that changes things. Saturday morning, I called my mother-in-law. "How's Dorothy doing?" I asked, casual as I could manage. There was a pause, a long pause, then, "Dorothy. Dorothy's fine, Harold. Why?" My blood went cold. "Kathy said she had a stroke, said you two were driving out to help." Another pause, longer this time. "Harold, I haven't talked to Kathy since Tuesday. I don't know what you're talking about." I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking. Michael was pulling at my leg, asking for cereal. Jennifer was crying in her crib, and my wife was somewhere that wasn't Pittsburgh, doing something she'd lied about, with someone I didn't know. I called in sick to my Sunday shift, something I never did. I called my mother, asked if she could keep the kids one more day. She heard something in my voice, didn't ask questions, just said yes. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I went through Kathy's things, her drawers, her closet, her purse she'd left on the dresser. I was looking for something, anything, that would explain the lie. I found it in a shoebox on the top shelf of our closet, tucked behind winter sweaters we hadn't worn yet that season. Letters, dozens of them, handwritten on nice paper, folded carefully, stuffed into envelopes with no addresses. Love letters, I realized after reading the first few lines of the top one, detailed, explicit love letters describing things I will not repeat here, even now, even after 50 years. They were all signed D. There were photographs too. Polaroids, nothing pornographic, thank God, but intimate enough. Kathy sitting on a hotel bed, hair messy, wearing a man's shirt. Kathy and a dark-haired man I'd never seen before, his arm around her waist, both of them grinning at the camera. Kathy asleep, curled up on those same hotel sheets, photographed by someone who clearly had access to her at her most vulnerable. And at the bottom of the box, a hotel receipt. The Sheraton in downtown Cleveland, room 447, checked in March 8, 1975, the previous weekend. Checked out March 9th. Paid for by a Douglas Hartley on an American Express card. I sat on our bedroom floor with that box in my lap and felt my entire world collapse, not dramatically, not with noise and fury, but quietly, silently, like a building imploding in slow motion, all the supporting structures giving way at once until there's nothing left but dust and the memory of what used to stand there. She'd been lying to me. For how long? The letters were dated going back to November 1974. 4 months of affairs, while I worked 60-hour weeks and came home exhausted to help with our children. 4 months of secret meetings and hotel rooms, and another man touching my wife while I believed everything she told me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. I wanted to drive to wherever she was and drag her home by her hair like some caveman husband from a bad movie. Instead, I carefully put everything back in the box, put the box back on the shelf, and went to pick up my kids from my mother's house. Kathy came home Monday morning, as promised. I was feeding Michael breakfast when I heard her key in the lock. Jennifer was in her high chair, smearing oatmeal into her hair. Everything looked normal, domestic, safe. She came into the kitchen, setting her small suitcase by the door, and smiled at me. Actually smiled, like she'd just come back from an innocent family visit instead of wherever she'd really been. "How was it?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Exhausting," she sighed, pouring herself coffee. "Aunt Dorothy is doing better, but it was touch and go for a while. Mom's staying through the week." The lie came so easily, so smoothly. Like she'd practiced it, refined it, made it believable. And if I hadn't called her mother, if I hadn't found that box, I would have believed her completely. I watched her sip her coffee, watched her ruffle Michael's hair, watched her wipe oatmeal from Jennifer's face, and I said nothing. Why? That's the question my kids asked me 3 weeks ago, sitting in my living room with 50 years of distance between that moment and their question. Why didn't you confront her? Why didn't you leave? Why did you stay? The answer is complicated. The answer is simple. The answer is that I was 26 years old, with 2 babies and a mortgage and a paycheck that barely covered our bills even when we were careful. The answer is that divorce in 1975 wasn't like divorce now. It was scandalous, expensive, messy. It meant losing the house. It meant splitting custody. It meant my kids growing up in a broken home, shuttled between 2 parents who couldn't stand each other. The answer is that I looked at Michael, 3 years old, eating his Cheerios, and Jennifer, barely old enough to walk, and I couldn't do it to them. I couldn't be the reason they grew up without both parents under the same roof. I couldn't be the man who broke up their family over something they'd never even know about. So I made a choice, the choice that would define the next 50 years of my life, for better or worse. I chose to stay. I chose to pretend I didn't know. I chose to bury it so deep that it would never surface, never touch my children, never poison their childhood with adult problems they couldn't understand. But I couldn't just pretend nothing happened. I had to know. That week, I called in a favor from a guy I knew from the plant, Tommy Marconi, whose brother was a private investigator. I didn't give him details. Just said I needed someone followed, needed to know where they were going and who they were seeing. It cost me $200 I couldn't afford, $200 that should have gone toward new tires for the car, or fixing the leak in our bathroom, or any of the 100 things we needed. $200 to confirm what I already knew. The PI followed Kathy for 2 weeks, photographed her meeting a man, Douglas Hartley, 32, an insurance adjuster married with 1 child, at various locations around Cleveland, coffee shops, restaurants, and twice the same Sheraton Hotel downtown. The report came with timestamps, locations, and photographs that made me want to vomit. Nothing explicit, just evidence of intimacy. His hand on the small of her back as they entered the hotel. Her leaning into him at a corner booth in a diner. The 2 of them getting into his car outside a movie theater. I paid the PI, thanked him, took the envelope home, and added it to the box I'd found in our closet. Then I did something that still haunts me. Something that made sense at the time, but that I've questioned every day for 50 years. I confronted her. But not the way you think. Not with rage or accusations or tears. I confronted her quietly, carefully, strategically. It was a Sunday night. The kids were asleep. We were in the kitchen, her washing dishes, me drying. Normal domestic routine. I know about Douglas, I said, my voice flat. She froze. The plate she'd been scrubbing slipped from her hands, clattered into the sink. She didn't turn around. I know about the hotels. I know about the letters. I know about all of it. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then quietly, how long have you known? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. She turned to face me then, her hands dripping soapy water onto the linoleum. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. She looked terrified. Good. Harold, I don't want to hear it. I cut her off. I don't want explanations or excuses or apologies. I just want to know if you're going to stop. She blinked. What? Are you going to stop seeing him? Yes or no? Yes. Yes, of course. It's over. It was already over, I swear. Don't swear. Don't make promises you're not going to keep. Just tell me, are you done with him? Yes. And if I find out you're lying, if I find out you're still seeing him or anyone else ever again? I let the question hang there, let her fill in the blank with whatever consequence she could imagine. Divorce, custody battle, social scandal, whatever scared her most. I'm done, she whispered. I promise. I'm so sorry, Harold. I don't know what I was thinking. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I nodded, set down the dish towel, walked out of the kitchen without another word. And that was it. That was the confrontation. No screaming, no throwing things, no dramatic declarations, just a quiet acknowledgement of what she'd done and an even quieter threat of what I'd do if she did it again. She ended it. I know because I had Tommy's brother follow her for another month just to be sure. Clean. No more meetings, no more hotels, no more Douglas Hartley. But the damage was done. Something fundamental had broken between us, and we both knew it. Our marriage became a performance, a play we acted out for the benefit of our children and our families and our friends. We slept in the same bed. We ate dinner together. We went to church on Sundays and hosted Thanksgiving and celebrated Christmas. And underneath it all, under every smile and every touch and every "I love you" that passed between us, was the knowledge of what she'd done and what I knew and what we'd both agreed never to speak of again. Living with that secret for 50 years changes you. It has to. You can't carry something that heavy, that toxic, for that long without it seeping into everything else. The first few years were the hardest. Every time Kathy left the house, I wondered. Every time she was late coming home from the grocery store, I suspected. Every time the phone rang and she answered it in another room, I strained to hear what she was saying and to whom. I became someone I didn't recognize, suspicious, paranoid, constantly vigilant for signs of betrayal that I told myself I didn't care about anymore. I'd made my choice to stay, to keep the family together, but that didn't mean I could just forget. It didn't mean I could trust her again. The box stayed in our closet. I moved it sometimes when we renovated or rearranged rooms, but I never threw it away. Why? I don't know. Insurance, maybe. Evidence, in case I ever needed it. Or maybe just a reminder to myself that what happened was real, that I hadn't imagined it, that my bitterness and distance had a foundation. Kathy tried, I'll give her that. She tried to make it up to me in 1,000 small ways. She became the perfect wife. Attentive, devoted, never questioning when I worked late or went out with friends. She threw herself into being a mother, into being active at church, into being a pillar of our community. She volunteered at the kids' school. She organized bake sales and charity drives. She became, by all external measures, the kind of woman everyone admired. And I let her. I let her rebuild her reputation while I stayed silent about what I knew. Because that was the deal, wasn't it? I wouldn't tell, and she would be grateful enough to never do it again. But you can't fake intimacy. You can share a bed, share a home, share a life, and still be fundamentally alone. And that's what we were. Two people coexisting in the same space, performing the roles of husband and wife, while the real connection, the trust, the vulnerability, the actual love, had died in March of 1975. The kids never noticed, or if they did, they didn't say anything. They grew up thinking we had a normal marriage. They saw us hold hands at their school plays. They saw us kiss on anniversaries. They saw us argue sometimes, make up, go through the ordinary rhythms of a long marriage. What they didn't see was the coldness between us when no one else was watching. The separate lives we led even while living in the same house. The way we could spend an entire evening together without actually connecting about anything meaningful. Michael got married in 1995. Beautiful wedding. His bride, Sarah, radiant, the whole family gathered to celebrate. I walked him down the aisle. No, wait, that's the bride. I stood as his best man. I gave a speech about love and commitment and making a marriage work through hard times. I talked about how his mother and I had weathered storms and come out stronger. I don't remember writing that speech, but I remember delivering it. I remember the applause. I remember Kathy squeezing my hand under the table, tears in her eyes, like I'd just said the most romantic thing in the world. I remember feeling hollow. Jennifer got married in 1998, David in 2002, each time the same performance. The proud parents, married for decades, offering wisdom about relationships from a position of experience and success. Each time, Kathy looked at me with such gratitude, such relief, like every anniversary we reached without me exposing her was a gift she didn't deserve. And it was. but it was costing me too. The bitterness grew, slowly, like calcium building up in an old pipe, narrowing the flow until eventually nothing gets through. I became harder, more cynical, less patient. I snapped at her for small things, leaving dishes in the sink, forgetting to buy milk, interrupting me when I was watching television. Nothing that would seem like a big deal to anyone else, but for me, each small annoyance was connected to the big one. The unspoken one, the one I'd promised never to mention but could never forget. She took it, all of it, every sharp word, every cold shoulder. Every time I pulled away when she tried to be affectionate, she took it like penance, like punishment she knew she'd earned. And I gave it to her. Not out of cruelty exactly, or maybe exactly out of cruelty. I don't know anymore. The line between protecting my family and punishing my wife blurred so completely over the decades that I lost track of which I was doing. The kids started noticing eventually. Not the cause, but the effect. Jennifer asked me once, maybe 10 years ago, if everything was okay between Kathy and me. You guys seem, I don't know, distant. We're fine, I told her. 50 years of marriage, honey. It's not always fireworks. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push, because what was she going to do? We were functional. We weren't screaming at each other or threatening divorce. We were just existing together. And isn't that what most long marriages look like eventually? I told myself it was. I told myself that the passion fades for everyone, that all marriages settle into comfortable routine or uncomfortable coexistence, and ours was no different. I told myself that I'd made the right choice, that keeping the secret had protected my children from pain, that their happy childhoods and stable upbringings justified the cost to my own happiness. Some days I believed it. Most days I just tried not to think about it, but the box stayed in the closet, moved from house to house as we downsized over the years. From the Lakewood house to a bigger place in Westlake when the kids were teenagers. From Westlake to a smaller condo in Rocky River when they all moved out. From the condo to this house, our final house, the one we'll probably die in 5 years ago. Every move, I'd carefully pack that box. Every move, Kathy would see me handling it and her face would go pale and she'd look away. But she never asked me to throw it out, never demanded I get rid of the evidence, because she knew, just as I knew, that the box was part of the deal, the physical manifestation of the sword hanging over her head. I almost threw it away a dozen times, stood with it over the trash can or a bonfire, ready to finally let it go, to finally release myself from the weight of carrying proof of something I'd decided didn't matter. But I never did. Something always stopped me. Maybe I was afraid that without the evidence, I'd start to doubt my own memory. Maybe I needed the proof to justify my bitterness. Maybe I was just holding on to it in case I ever changed my mind about keeping the secret. Whatever the reason, the box survived. 50 years, 5 houses, 1,000 opportunities to destroy it, and it survived. Until 3 weeks ago, when my son went into the attic looking for Christmas decorations and found a cardboard box labeled H. Personal in my handwriting, tucked behind insulation in a corner I thought no one would ever look. Michael called me on a Tuesday afternoon. His voice sounded strange, strained, confused, hurt. "Dad, I found something in your attic." My blood went cold. "What did you find?" "A box, letters, photos, a hotel receipt from 1975. Silence. Long, terrible silence. My mind was racing, trying to figure out how to explain, how to deflect, how to maintain the secret I'd kept for 50 years. "Dad, are you there?" "I'm here." "What is this? Who is Douglas Hartley? Why do you have letters between him and Mom?" I closed my eyes, felt the weight of 50 years pressing down on me like physical force. "Where are you?" "At your house. Mom's at her book club. I came to drop off the decorations and I found this box and I just... Dad, what the hell is this?" "Don't tell your mother you found it. Don't tell her. Dad, these are love letters. Is this what I think it is? Michael, listen to me. Did Mom cheat on you? Is that what this is? Did she have an affair? The word hung in the air. Affair. Such a small word for such a massive betrayal. Such a clean, almost clinical word for the thing that had poisoned my marriage for half a century. Yes, I said finally. In 1975, it's over. It's been over for 50 years. Leave it alone. Leave it alone? Dad, you've been carrying this for 50 years. Why didn't you ever tell us? Because you didn't need to know, because it wasn't your burden to carry, but it was yours. You just carried this alone for 50 years and never said anything? I'm saying something now. I'm telling you to put the box back, forget you saw it, and don't mention it to anyone, especially not your mother. But it was too late. I could hear it in his voice, the anger, the confusion, the sense of betrayal, not just on my behalf, but his own. Like he'd been lied to his entire life about who his parents were, what their marriage was, and he had been. They all had been. I'm calling Jennifer and David, he said. We need to talk about this. Michael, don't. He hung up. I sat in my living room, phone in my hand, and felt the last 50 years crumbling around me. The secret I'd kept, the performance I'd maintained, the carefully constructed facade of a happy marriage, all of it disintegrating because I'd forgotten about a box in an attic. Kathy came home an hour later. She knew immediately that something was wrong. Maybe it was my face. Maybe it was the way I couldn't look at her. Maybe it was just that after 50 years of walking on eggshells around each other, she'd developed a sixth sense for when the past was about to resurface. What happened? She asked. Michael found the box. I watched her face drain of color, watched her grab the back of a chair for support, watched 50 years of carefully maintained denial crack like ice under pressure. "Oh, God," she whispered. "Oh, God, Harold, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought you'd destroyed it. I kept it in the attic. He was looking for Christmas decorations." "What did you tell him?" "The truth. What else was I supposed to say?" She started crying. Not delicate tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. No, not like this, not after all this time. "Harold, please, we need to figure out what to say. We need to explain." "There's nothing to explain, Kathy. You had an affair. I found out. I kept it secret. Now they know. That's the whole story. But they'll hate me. They'll think I'm a monster. They'll think our whole marriage was a lie. Wasn't it?" She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "How can you say that? We've been together 53 years. We raised 3 children. We have 7 grandchildren. We've built a whole life together." "We've existed together," I corrected. "We've performed together, but we haven't had a real marriage since 1975. That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair? I've spent 50 years pretending I didn't know what you did. 50 years protecting your reputation, protecting the kids from knowing their mother was unfaithful. 50 years carrying your secret like it was my own. Don't talk to me about fair." We were still standing like that, her by the door, me on the couch, when my phone rang. Jennifer, then David, then Michael again, one after another, demanding answers, demanding an explanation, demanding to know why we'd lied to them their entire lives. I told them to come over, all of them, Saturday afternoon. We'd talk about it together as a family. One conversation, all the truth, and then what? I didn't know. But at least the secret would finally be out. They came on Saturday, Michael with Sarah, Jennifer with her husband Tom, David alone. His wife stayed home with their kids, probably sensing this was going to be ugly. They sat in our living room, the same living room where we'd celebrated Christmas mornings and birthday parties and countless ordinary family moments, and they looked at me like I was a stranger. Kathy sat in her chair by the window, silent. I'd never seen her so still, so small. She kept wringing her hands, twisting her wedding ring around and around her finger. Tell us everything, Michael said. His voice was hard, angry. From the beginning. So I did. I told them about March 1975, about the lie about Aunt Dorothy, about finding the box in the closet. I told them about Douglas Hartley, about the hotels, about the letters and photographs that proved their mother had been with another man. I told them about my choice, to stay, to protect them, to maintain the illusion of an intact family even though the foundation was broken. I told them about the 50 years that followed, about the coldness between their mother and me, about the bitterness that had calcified over decades into something permanent and unbreakable. Jennifer was crying. David looked sick. Michael just stared at his mother with an expression I'd never seen on his face before, disgust mixed with pity, mixed with something like grief. "Mom," Jennifer said finally, "is this true?" Kathy nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, all of it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "Who is Douglas Hartley?" David asked. "Someone I worked with," Kathy whispered, "at the insurance office. It started as friendship and then it became more. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong, but I—" "Did you love him?" Michael interrupted. Silence. "Mom, did you love him?" "I thought I did," she said finally. "At the time. But it wasn't real. It was fantasy. Escape. Your father was working all the time. I was home with 2 babies. I felt invisible and exhausted. And when Douglas paid attention to me, I let it happen. I let it become something it shouldn't have been." "That's not an excuse," Michael said coldly. I know it's not. There is no excuse. There's no justification. I betrayed your father, and I've regretted it every single day for 50 years. "But you never told us," Jennifer said. "You let us grow up thinking you had this perfect marriage. You let us model our own relationships after yours. You lied to us." "We were protecting you," I said. "No." Michael shook his head. "You were protecting her. Don't pretend this was about us, Dad. You could have divorced her. You could have told us when we were adults. You chose to live a lie for 50 years, and that's on you as much as it's on her." He wasn't wrong. But hearing it said out loud still felt like a punch to the gut. "So what now?" David asked. "What happens now that we know?" That was the question, wasn't it? What happens when you finally expose a secret that's been buried for 50 years? Do you feel relief? Do you feel regret? Do you feel anything at all besides tired? "Now you know the truth," I said. "Now you understand why your mother and I were the way we were, why I was distant, why she was always trying so hard. Now you can decide for yourselves how you want to feel about it." "How you want us to feel about it?" Jennifer asked incredulously. "Dad, you can't just drop this bomb on us and then act like it's our problem to solve." "It is your problem now," I said, "because now you know. Now you have to figure out how to reconcile the mother you thought you knew with the person who did this, how to reconcile the parents you thought you had with the reality of what we actually were." "We should go," Michael said, standing abruptly. "I can't. I need to process this. I need time." They left, all 3 of them, filing out without hugs or goodbyes, leaving Kathy and me alone in the living room with the wreckage of 50 years spread out between us. "Harold," Kathy said quietly, "I'm sorry for all of it, for what I did, for what it cost you, for the fact that you carried this alone for so long." I looked at her. Really looked at her. 74 years old, grey hair, age spots on her hands, the face I'd woken up next to for 53 years, a stranger, a companion, the mother of my children, the woman who'd betrayed me, all of it somehow, at the same time. "I know you are," I said. "I've always known you were sorry, but sorry doesn't undo it, Kathy. Sorry doesn't give me back the 50 years I spent pretending. What do you want me to say? What can I possibly say that would make this better?" "Nothing. There's nothing you can say. That's the point. That's what I've been trying to tell you for 50 years without actually saying it. You broke something that can't be fixed, and I stayed anyway. And now we're here, 76 and 74 years old, and our kids finally know the truth, and it changes everything and nothing all at once. She was crying again. I felt nothing. Maybe I should have felt something, pity, anger, sadness, something, but there was just emptiness. 50 years of anger, burned down to ash. "Do you want me to leave?" she asked. I almost laughed. "Now? After 50 years, now you ask if you should leave? I don't know what else to do. Neither do I, Kathy, neither do I." It's been 3 weeks since that conversation. 3 weeks of awkward phone calls with the kids, of stilted conversations with Kathy, of trying to figure out what our lives look like now that the truth is finally out. Michael hasn't spoken to his mother. He calls me every few days, asks how I'm doing, tells me I should have left her decades ago. I don't disagree with him, but I also don't regret my choice. I did what I thought was right for them, even if it cost me. Jennifer is trying to play peacemaker, calling both of us, suggesting family counseling, acting like we can fix this with enough communication. She doesn't understand that some things are too broken to fix, that time doesn't heal all wounds. Sometimes it just lets them calcify. David is quiet. He listens when I talk, doesn't judge, doesn't offer advice. I appreciate him the most right now, even though, or maybe because, he says the least. Kathy and I are still living in the same house, still sharing the same bed, though we sleep on opposite edges like strangers. We eat dinner together out of habit. We watch television in the evening. We exist in the same space the way we have for decades. But something's different now. The performance is over. The secret is out. We don't have to pretend anymore, and the relief of that is almost overwhelming. I don't hate her. I thought I might, after finally saying everything out loud, after watching the fallout spread through our family. But I don't. I'm just done. Done pretending, done protecting her, done carrying a secret that was never really mine to carry. Last night, she asked me if I regretted staying. Sometimes, I told her, but mostly I just regret that it happened at all. I wish I could take it back, she said. I'd give anything to undo it. I know, but you can't. And we can't get back the 50 years we spent living in the shadow of it. So here we are. Do you think the kids will forgive me? I don't know. Maybe. Eventually. They'll forgive you before they understand, probably. But understanding might never come. She nodded, accepting that. We sat in silence for a while, two old people who'd spent a lifetime together and apart simultaneously. Harold, she said finally, thank you. For what? For staying. For protecting them. For keeping my secret even though it hurt you. For 50 years of sacrifice that I didn't deserve. I didn't respond. Because what do you say to that? You're welcome? It was worth it? It wasn't? I still don't know if I made the right choice. I protected my children from knowledge that would have hurt them, but I sacrificed my own happiness to do it. I kept my family intact, but the family was built on a foundation of lies. I stayed married to a woman I couldn't trust, and that lack of trust seeped into everything else, made me harder and colder and less capable of real intimacy with anyone. Was it worth it? Ask me on different days, and I'll give you different answers. But I can tell you this, the weight of carrying someone else's sin for 50 years will change you in ways you can't anticipate. It'll make you bitter. It'll make you suspicious. It'll make you question every gesture of affection and every expression of love, wondering if it's real or just another performance. And when the truth finally comes out, because it always does eventually one way or another, the relief won't feel like vindication. It'll just feel like exhaustion. I'm 76 years old. My wife cheated on me 50 years ago. I caught her. I never told anyone until my son found evidence I thought I'd hidden well enough. Now my children know the truth, and they're struggling to reconcile the parents they thought they had with the reality of who we actually were. And I'm struggling to figure out what the last chapter of my life looks like now that I'm no longer performing, no longer protecting, no longer carrying a secret that shaped every day of the last 50 years. I don't have answers. I don't have wisdom to share about forgiveness or trust or how to rebuild after betrayal. All I have is my story. I caught her cheating in 1975. I stayed. I said nothing. And now, at 76 years old, the truth is finally out, and I'm discovering that relief and regret can occupy the same space in your chest without canceling each other out. The kids will figure out how they feel eventually. Kathy and I will figure out how to exist together in this new reality where the performance is finally over, and maybe, in whatever time we have left, we'll find something resembling peace. Or maybe we won't. Either way, the secret's out, and after 50 years of silence, that has to count for something.